Now I will turn it over to Kelly, who will give a brief summary of the activities of our Massachusetts chapter in the last year. Kelly.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, James. So we've been a very active chapter. I can't speak for the other chapters of the IDA around the country and around the world, but I know that we keep pretty darn busy at the very localist of levels, to the state level, to the national level, and even internationally. Internationally, James was participating in the Dark and Quiet Skies conference, as was Annette, just a couple of weeks ago, co-sponsored by the United Nations and the International Astronomical Union, I believe. And we'll hear more about our statewide bill that we're very enthusiastic and positive about, hoping that gets passed this year finally. And then at the local level, many of us here assembled, and for those who are not more active, we reach out to every community that we can whenever somebody gets lighting from an annoying neighbor or a critical city council meeting. We've even reached out into Maine and some of the other states to not so much to provide expertise, but just the basic knowledge. I think what we all know to be true is that many decisions about lighting are made by people who don't know anything about lighting. And so often the decisions are not good ones, not through any particular fault of their own, just for a lack of education. And so that is a primary task of what we do. We have done a lot of interviews. That seems to be something that comes our way very frequently. There was an article in the Boston Globe just in August. I know that PBS Nova is doing a story about the situation on Nantucket, and maybe Gail will talk about that briefly. We seem to light pollution is not a fringy kind of topic anymore. It's something that resonates a lot with people, and especially as we all look forward to a future with more concern about energy consumption and global warming. Reducing lighting is one very small but important way to do that. Going forward, I should say on the national level, especially our national bill, and Sean Garballey will get to this in just a moment. The bill that we are putting forward here in Massachusetts has caught the attention, and we've worked closely with the International Dark Sky in general, the Illuminating Engineering Society. It has been a catalyst for conversation about what such bills should look like and what legislation should look like, and how to make strike the correct balance between having the minimum amount of light that we think is warranted and having the right amount of light for safety and security. It's been very, very energizing to have that conversation going. And finally, we've been involved in creating possible amendments for the energy code here in the state, which is the code that would be applied in any new construction project, whether there's an overarching lighting ordinance involved or not. So this has involved primarily our officers, but many of the volunteers, many of you here, we are, the one appeal I would make is we are trying to create a network of very localized contacts all throughout the state. We're pretty well represented in the western part of the state and in the greater Boston area. We have some gaps like in the North Shore, the Southwest and South Central Massachusetts. If any of you would like to just be a point of contact for people who are seeking basic answers and can forward that information to us or whatever, please let me know. My email address is pretty simple. It's kbd@darksky.org. And I think that will wrap it. Did I miss any? One last thing. We have engaged the Department of Transportation 2 or 3 times over the last year on lighting projects, and our signature accomplishment has been the forthcoming relighting of the intersection of I-93 and Route 28 in Randolph, where that abuts the Blue Hills Reservation, the largest conservation area in the greater Boston area. That was done without due regard to the environmental sensitivity of that area. we got involved along with other Sierra Club and some other groups, and we actually got MassDOT to change the lighting plan that they were ready to start breaking ground on. So I feel really good about that. James, I guess that kind of covers it as far as I can tell. If I missed something, please chime in. Otherwise, let's hear from Representative Garballey.
That's good, Kelly. Please go on. And Kelly, if you want to just say a few words about Sean Garballey of introduction.
Yes, Sean Garballey has been one of our two principal sponsors for our outdoor lighting bill. He handles the submission on the House side. On the Senate side, Senator Cynthia Cream, and they've worked very closely. It's an identical bill going forward right now. And I have to give Representative Garballey a lot of credit because he inherited this bill from his predecessor in his district. This is now many years ago, but he embraced the bill and has been just dogged in trying to get this bill through the rather convoluted legislature on Beacon Hill, and I think you'll hear that we're actually making good progress on it. So I want to thank him for coming today, making the time to come today. I think that gives us all an indication of how dedicated he is to getting this bill passed.
Great. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Well, excellent. Well, Kelly, thanks so much for that kind introduction. I am actually standing in a parking lot because evidently no one else could drive my niece to her piano lessons. So my apologies for the informal nature of this, but I did want to join you to talk about the bill that I have filed, as Kelly mentioned, since 2008 in different iterations and variations. And this one, most recent iteration, is co-sponsored by many legislators across the state. And Cindy Cream is the Senate filer over in the Senate. So the House bill is 3306, an act to improve outdoor lighting, conserve energy, and increase dark sky visibility. So if anybody has not yet called their rep or their senator about the bill, if you could take a little moment to educate your lawmaker on why this bill is so important, that would go a tremendous far way of helping get this bill passed. Currently, as Kelly mentioned, the legislation is before the Joint Committee on Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy, who is chaired on the House side by Jeff Roy. So if anybody lives in Franklin or knows anybody in Franklin, it would be helpful if you could give him a call and let him know how supportive of the bill you are. So we have, as Kelly mentioned, we have made very good progress. First of all, last session, we did get the bill reported out favorably by the Joint Committee on Telecommunications, and that was one of the first times that ever happened. And unfortunately, because of COVID and everything else that was going on, we ran out of time to be able to get it passed. But the fact that it was reported out favorably by committee last session, I believe, even though it's a different chair now, it bodes well for the chances of being able to get this bill passed this session. So the committee, the Joint Committee on Telecommunications, just had a hearing on the bill last month. It was widely praised. I heard great things from the chairman. I testified. Many of the people on this call testified. Senator Cream testified. And even a couple of days, actually the day before the hearing or 2 days before the hearing, Kelly and folks came and did a education seminar for about 20 members of the House. And that was really thought-provoking. It was an incredible academic exercise for lawmakers to actually hear the facts, to understand what the problems are with our inefficient lighting practices across the Commonwealth, and how this bill can help address those problems. And it really started out with, if you live in Greater Boston and you walk out your front door at night and you look up at the sky, you see a shiny glow, and maybe one or two stars in the sky. You think it's a star, but it's probably a planet, because you just can't see stars in the Boston area, and it's getting worse every year because of inefficient lighting and inefficient lighting policies. So we are able to educate lawmakers, and so just like any piece of legislation, and for those who are here, 5,000 bills get filed every session. So many times what gets passed are the bills that lawmakers collectively are hearing the most about. So it would make a tremendous difference, to reiterate what I said earlier, if you were to pick up the phone and talk to your lawmaker. I'm sure most of you already have, but it really will make a tremendous. And this bill, through the effort of years and years of talking with lawmakers, talking with experts, really is just better practice, right? We're the only state in New England to not have this kind of law on the books. And so that's important to mention to lawmakers, that we are way behind the 8 ball on this. And this would go a long way for just having efficient lighting practices. You drive around, you see lighting at night. A lot of lighting in Massachusetts still shines up, not down, as it's intended to do. And as you all know, you are the experts, it has tremendous negative consequences on animal migration, on our own health, and just general efficiency. So this bill, I think, really does go a long way, and I think we're moving in the right direction. I do anticipate, after speaking with the chairman of the committee, that it will be exected out, I hope soon, and I hope to work with all of you to finally get this long overdue bill passed and sent to the governor for his signature. So thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Garballey. That is just so great to hear that that upbeat report and perspective, and you hit all the highlights of why this bill matters. And I know that it resonates with everybody on this call very much, everything you just said. And it sounds so hopeful that I almost want to suggest that we should start thinking about what we're going to do after the bill is passed, but maybe we shouldn't go there quite yet.
If I could ask a quick question of you, Rep. Garballey. During our public hearing, we were among many bills involving all kinds of energy efficiency policy. And I tried to make the case, and I think you did as well, that this is not a bill that's encumbered or entangled in other bills that are coming before the legislature. And I'm wondering if, because it's, just sort of a standalone, no complications, win-win kind of bill, whether that improves our odds of getting reported out of TUE sooner rather than later.
Well, you would think it would, but unfortunately, it hasn't been the case over the last 10 years. Which is mind-boggling to me. But I think this year, because the chairman this time is a bit of a policy wonk, which is who you want as the chairman of the Telecommunications Committee, and he really dives deep down into legislation. And that's what he's doing with this one. And I think anybody who does a deep dive on this bill, on legislation, understands how important this bill is for Massachusetts. And so I think you are right? This really focuses on best lighting practices and codifying something in law that every other New England state has, but us has a lot of, that gives us a lot of momentum. But the chairman really is someone who dives deep into policy. Not to say that the previous chairman didn't, but I know this chairman will, and that's just really important for us, I think, to be able to get good legislation passed, which this is.
I have one quick question. Representative Garballey, it's good to see you again, or at least hear you. If we make it out of the TUE, let's say hopefully in the near term, will it still go to the Ways and Means Committee for a budget evaluation? Is that the next step?
So usually that's where so bills either go to the Ways and Means Committee or the Committee on Bills and Third Reading. I don't think there is much of a budget impact on this because, as you know, it's the changes to lighting is prospective. It's, you know, we're not going around and changing every light fixture in all 351 cities and towns. So I'm making an effort that it go to the Committee on Bills and Third Reading. But, you know, at the end of the day, that will be out of my hands, and it may end up in Ways and Means. But I certainly would rather it go to Bills and Third Reading. And that's nothing against Ways and Means. It's just hundreds of bills go to Ways and Means. So I would feel more comfortable about its prospects if it went to a different committee, especially because I don't think there's a fiscal note that needs to be attached to this bill. But that's just my opinion.
Thanks, Rep. Garballey, for fielding these questions. We're conscious of your time, and we know you're standing in a parking lot outside your niece's music lesson. Any last minute burning questions we want to pose before we, oh, Gail, please go ahead.
If I could, it's just a basic question that I feel like I should know, but do representatives and senators prefer to be called, emailed, or receive old-fashioned letters in the mail? What is the most effective?
Well, Gail, every rep is different, right? And so there's, you know, I love it when my constituents call me or email me or set up, you know, it's kind of tough with, we're still in the kind of the reins of the pandemic, but I don't think there's any substitute for meeting your lawmaker face to face and walking them through the bill and why it's important to you and why you think it should be important to them. If you're not able to set up a face-to-face meeting, whether you're nervous about COVID or maybe your rep isn't setting those up, you know, a phone call I think would also be helpful. And if you can't do that, you know, certainly a direct letter or an email. It doesn't have to be a letter. It can be a short email to them, and maybe encourage your rep to call you, you know, if you'd like that, would go a long way. You know, your rep, I think, is Dylan Fernandez. Is that right, Gail? Who's pretty great on these issues. So
he's already a co-sponsor.
Yeah.
It's Senator Sear, who I haven't been able to get a response from when I've emailed several times, and I just get an automated response.
Okay. So, you know, you can get his phone number, you know, online, you know, maybe pick up the phone and leave a message for him and ask him to call you back. Might be the best approach. You know, there's 200 lawmakers statewide. They all have their kind of different approaches for how they like to respond to constituents. You know, because you're really educating your lawmaker on lighting policy, and I always think it's effective to do that one-on-one. But whatever your time allows will be helpful.
Thanks for
very
that.
much.
Yes, that's terrific to have that advice straight from the top. Representative Garballey, thank you very much again for your time today, and especially for your longstanding support for this cause. And fingers crossed.
Thanks so much.
Great.
Thank you.